Thank you so much, Josh. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you to all of you who put notes and intentions into the chat box. Much appreciated, and so wonderful to see so many familiar faces and to be back in this loving space with all of you. So, um, you know, we're just about to read Parshat Korach, and this has always been one of the most difficult moments within our annual cycle for me. Um, for those of you who might not be familiar with this Torah portion, Korach and a group of people rise up against Moses and Aaron. But the reason that it's really, really tough for me is that their complaint really resonates with me because they say, well, why do you guys get to be in charge? Because all of us are holy. And so it's very hard to see then the punishment that is meted out against Korach. So this is every year that this comes up. I struggle with this Torah portion. And the rabbis do a beautiful job of really contextualizing that it's not those words that are the problem, but the way that Korach and his followers rise up. But so today, in preparation for today, I kind of looked at this portion with a different lens and thought to myself, well, what if this lesson of this portion is about mindfulness? We don't hear about Korach before this incident. Yet, in order for him to have reached this point, this bubbling point where he goes and rallies all these people and is, planning this rebellion, there have to have been things going on. There have to have been a whole lot of emotions bubbling up. And I thought, wow, it's so much like us in our daily lives. We have all these emotions bubbling up. There are times, hopefully, if we are mindful, that we express those emotions appropriately at the time when they are not going to bubble over and cause harm. We express them to ourselves. We acknowledge them within ourselves is the first step. That's what mindfulness is about. And that's what meditation gives us a chance to do. So that we aren't swallowed up by the earth. So that we don't engage in lashing out in ways that cause harm to ourselves and to others. And so I thought that with that in mind, it would be nice to sit today and pay attention to what's going on in the mind body. And when I say that, I mean to pay attention to the tone of what's going on within our minds and the emotions that we may be experiencing and how those may be playing out within the physical self. And there are a couple of ways to do this. We can pay attention primarily to what we're thinking and the emotions that are coming forward through our mind, or we can start even just with checking in with our bodies and seeing what's going on physically in the body. Is there a sense of an electricity running through the body that is like a negative electricity that can come from a sense of heightened emotion? And our sitting together allows us a moment to notice that heightened quality that we might be having and to willfully examine it and allow it to dissipate a little bit. Allow space so that we can kind of calm that nervous system down. So that's what I would like for us to engage in today. We're going to sit for about 12 minutes. I'm going to get us settled and then allow for some silent time. And when our silent period is over, I will bring us out of our sitting with a song, just to let you know what to expect. So let's just find a way to settle in our places. And just first, notice if you're breathing. Hopefully you are. And we're going to find a way to sit upright. For me, I'm going to sit cross-legged in my chair here. So excuse me while I adjust a little bit. You can find any way that's comfortable and dignified to sit. You might want to think about opening the heart space as you sit. You might want to notice where the body meets the pillow or the floor or the chair. Find that as a grounding space. And then just starting to notice what's going on in the mind body right now. And let's start with the physical body and just noticing what's going on through the limbs, through the arms and the legs. And if there's any sense of excitement there, just noticing that and perhaps relaxing. And if there's a sense of lethargy there, maybe just asking the self to sit up a little straighter and be present in this moment. Just noticing what's going on in the body. Coming in from the limbs, notice what's going on in the center of the body. From the throat, through the chest cavity, through the abdomen, all the way down to the sitting bones. Notice what's happening there. And seeing if you are able to take a nice breath in and out, allowing for space within the breath, space within the body, space within the mind, and allowing for a settling within the mind, settling into the breath, settling into this body. And then finally, noticing what's going on in the face and the head, and just allowing the muscles in the face to relax, letting the eyes rest gently, allowing the brow to unfurrow. Letting go of the many, many muscles that control the jaw, tongue, and throat. We're going to sit for about 6 minutes, quietly noticing what's going on in the body, just paying attention to the physical self and what arises there, and bringing spaciousness and a sense of settling the body down and settling the mind down through our sit together today. ratzon, ken yehi ratzon. May you find your way back home. Ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon. May you find your way back home. May we be safe. May we be free. May we find space to just be. Can you hear ratzon? Can you hear ratzon? May you find your way back home. Can you hear ratzon? Can you hear ratzon? May you find your way back home. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to turn it back over to Josh. Thanks for being here, being present.
Thanks, Kerith. So we'll have a chance to ask, if you'd like to stick around to ask Kerith questions or share reflections. But before we do that, we're going to take a moment to give those who are saying Kaddish the opportunity to do so. And if you are reciting Kaddish for someone in memory of someone today, please feel welcome in the chat to share their name and who you're carrying in your mind and your heart today. And you can feel welcome to unmute yourself, as is our custom here. So please join with me. Yitkadal,
Meirabah,
Alma,
Bagala, Bisman, Karim, Amen. Ishlame, Rakal, Lam, Ame, Amen, Tadar, Vitalas, Lamiko, Bashrata, Miran, Belma, Bimru, Amen.
Say shalom b'marav. Say shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks again. Thank you again to Kerith. Let me make one more plug for our event on June 21st to thank Kerith. And since he's not here today, Mark Margolius, if you're a Mark groupie, which there are a lot of out there, this is a wonderful time to show your affection. Thank you in advance. For those who would like to stay, please feel welcome to do so. For those who are leaving us, Lahitraot, we'll hope to see you soon. We'll be back here again tomorrow, same time and channel. Kerith, I was struck, and if you have a question or comment, please put it in the chat. I was struck, you opened by thinking about mentioning Korach, which is a punchline to a joke. It reminds me of Korach. Everything can remind you of Korach. And I wrote, those who might subscribe to my weekly Parshat HaShavua essays, obviously wrote about Korach too. And I was thinking about, similar to what you're talking about, that even in, that a lot of what we're missing in, I think, of a lot of our communal discussion about disagreement in politics and everything else, is just the embodied nature of it. There's this prior piece of just managing your own emotions and being aware of like what's going on, that leads us to. So I wonder if like do you have your own practice around that of how you try to live into that, because we're bombarded by all these triggers. So I wonder about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I just really want to briefly, so I don't forget, a bunch of people wrote me like private messages thanking me for the sit, and I wasn't able to respond to all of you, but thank you so much. That meant a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. So, Josh, it's so funny that you mentioned this, because I've been thinking about, there's this piece of ego attached to this too, right? Like what I have to say is so important that I need to say it, and I'm going to formulate it while you're talking. So I'm not really fully going to pay attention to you, because I'm thinking about what it is that I'm going to say next that is so important. And I grew up in a family, and I loved this about my family. Like our discussions would be like so intense. And it was almost a way of showing love for each other, that we would, jump in to the sentence that someone was finishing with something that we wanted to say right away. And it was a way of showing like, I'm actually really, really paying attention to you. So that was my family of origin. So I have 2 children, and I'm blessed with 2 children and a wonderful husband. And my son and I both do this thing, like this intellectual sparring kind of thing, where we like jump in and we want to have an answer right away and respond and be. And we see that as a way of like really showing we're paying attention to each other. My husband and my daughter, this drives them crazy. And I was thinking about this recently in light of exactly what you said, and have recently, like in the past week, started a practice of really, when my husband and daughter especially are speaking, just listening, trying not to think about what I am going to say next. and kind of taking a breath when they're done talking before even responding. And I think it's something I should probably do in general. I mean, it would be great for me to do this in meetings at work. I think it's a really good practice. So thanks for asking that question, because I think it's very important and so very important in political discourse, and incredibly difficult to listen compassionately in political discourse. Just such a difficult practice.
It's interesting, because when you're in the context of Korach, it's interesting to think about, right, Moshe's line to Korach, Shimu na b'nei Levi, right? Listen, right? Listen. And it's also interesting to think about Levi, the original son of Jacob, who, is a violent person, right? It's, he's one of the brothers who go, Levi and Shimon, who go and kill everybody in Shechem. And the ability to, it's playing out within the tribe of Levi here between Moses and Korach. It's almost like it's working out, is our own leadership class, going to develop this sensibility for listening. There's probably a nice Dvar Torah in that.
Yeah, Josh, and I almost think that there's, I mean, it's taking this thought to an extreme place, but there's a gentleness to allowing words to settle. And you could say, on the other hand, there's almost a violence to jumping in right away with a response or a correction or fixing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Much more practical question. Did you write the song at the end?
I did not write that song. That song was written by the wonderful Ilana Arian. It's called Ken Yehi Ratzon, May It Be God's Will. And if you just Google Ken Yehi Ratzon, Arian, Arian, you can find a million beautiful recordings of it on YouTube all over the place. So, yeah.
There, wonderful. Okay, so we got there were a number of questions related to that. Here's another question from Laura Zinker. The prayer and / melody speaks to body and soul. What are your thoughts about why or how music successfully breaks through the walls we construct when nothing else does?
I was hoping you were going to choose that one.
I'm up your alley right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a few things, and it's so interesting because we're on Zoom, right? So if you and I were in the same space when we're singing together, this is actually one of the reasons why singing is so dangerous in COVID, right? Because we're breathing the same air, and I am creating sound, or you are creating sound. We are creating sound with that same air that we share. So it is really, singing is just such a communal experience. Even if you're not singing, even if you're just receiving, right? So, and even through Zoom, singing, you're hearing it, and you think that that's your experience of music, is just hearing it. You are also receiving that through your body, because sound is vibration, and you are feeling that it is physically moving you. And when we create music, we order sound. We put sound in an order. That's really, I think, what makes music. Just like when we order words, they become poetry. Okay. So when there's a specific order to sound, it becomes music, and it resonates the body. So I think that is why it breaks through the walls. I think that it also just allows us to access the non-judgmental, non-intellectual part of our thinking, because it's just ordered sound, right? It doesn't necessarily have a meaning to it. So then we can ascribe whatever meaning to it we need it to have in that moment. So those are my thoughts on why music does the amazing things that it does. My son likes to say, my son is also a musician, and he likes to say that people think that music is magic. People think that music is magic. He as a musician does not think it's magic, because he knows the amount of work that goes into it. But there is a certain magic to music when it happens.
There was and maybe this is a related question, I don't know, but about the question of ratzon, right, will. And so, here's an easy one. How do you know what the divine will is, or what, how do you find ratzon? I don't know if you have insight on that one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, you don't. I think that's the hard and easy answer, right? But I think we can know what is not God's will. And it's certainly not God's will for us to walk through the world, creating violence, creating havoc, creating harm. And so thereby, I think it's safe to say that cultivating wholesome qualities, right, we can put that in the category of that is God's will, and then I do think there's something, getting back to this idea of ego, sublimating our will what we need and want in the moment, and examining it and asking ourselves a question, is this something that I want because of my ego and my need to grasp, or am I, repulsed by something, and is that my response, or is this truly wholesome for me, for others? And I think that's the question that we can ask ourselves and get as close as we can to, knowing what God's will might be.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a comment here from Stephen. I feel violence when my statement is ignored. I don't Stephen was talking about we ignored Stephen, but that nonviolent communication is about honoring the other's statement, feeling, or point. But the pressure is in a limited time, is there space for it all? And I think Stephen's a wonderful question about, especially in the social media world, which is designed to pressure you into, you got to decide what, am I going to respond to this? I'm going to let this go, and relieving ourselves a bit of that time pressure. It's what my colleague Sam Feinsmith likes to talk about, Shabbat mind, right? It's like, if you can relieve yourself of that time pressure, there's nowhere to be, and then start to ask the question, if I'm like, what's this bringing up for me? Where's that coming from? Where's this urge to respond coming from? And is this practicing what someone referenced, that Mark talks about, hitlamdut, of self-awareness, and then recognizing the space that you have to make some choices. And then giving ourselves the space is just like the first most important, self-compassion act, it seems.
Yes. Yeah. I think, that social media does heighten all of this. That being said, with the people who are important to us and with whom we are interacting, beyond a like, I think it's also important to let those who are close to us in our lives know what it is that we need from them. I think it was Stephen, I think, to answer your question, you might not be able to get that recognition from everyone in your life. But I think it's very important to reach out to those who are close to you and share that for you is something that needs to be acknowledged. Acknowledging your voice is important to you, and to start with that inner circle and then move out from there.
All right. Well, this is a good place for us, I think, to press pause, and we know you'll be back again. But space between speakers, there you go, with different accents. It's different in New York, for sure. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kerith, for your teaching today, and thanks, everyone, for participating. We will be back here tomorrow, same time and channel.